second spring featured alumni talk, and we have Kyle Gorman with us. Yeah, Google Hangouting in from New York City, so I'm going to go ahead and let him take over and introduce himself.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Kyle Gorman. Like she said, I graduated last May from the University of Florida, and now I live in New York City and work at the New York City Department of Transportation essentially in like the bicycle and pedestrian projects group. The Department of Transportation is a bunch of different agencies, and I'm fortunate enough to work on like a lot of the different projects that the department undertakes. I mostly like the bicycles because that's what I like the most, but we do buses, bikes, sidewalks, bridges, tunnels, ferries, the whole shebang. I was a geography major when I went to UF. I also minored in Chinese language, which led me to study abroad in my junior, which actually ended up being my senior year. And I went to Beijing, China for 3 months over the summer, which was very fun. And I definitely recommend studying abroad because it's an easy way to also graduate quicker too. Yeah, so it's been a pretty wild ride since I graduated in May. I really I often think about how lucky I am and all the opportunities that I had when I was at UF and through FOS and everything else. And so much of that has played a humongous role in everything I have now and what I will continue to achieve. And I'm so glad that I get to share my experience with everyone else today too. So is it question answer or is that the format today?
Yeah, we'll do some questions, but first can they introduce themselves and then...
Yeah. Cool, definitely. I can't see them. I see Leslie, and then with the girl at the blue computer with the that's Stephanie, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Stephanie's next. There's 4.
Okay.
So we have 2.
Okay.
And then
I see 2 people. I see a girl with braids at a blue computer, and then I see Leslie.
Stephanie.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, come around.
Okay, can you see me?
Yes, I can see you.
Awesome.
Stephanie, you might want to hear.
Yes.
All right, so why don't you guys introduce yourself, tell him who you are, what your major is, why you're here, what you're interested in.
Hi, Kyle. My name is Yoshi. I'm actually a geology major.
Nice.
Minor in dance. I actually came here today to actually get some insight about what can I do after I graduate? How is it gonna be like for me? And I'm kind of glad that you're also a geography major because I just recently switched from being a computer science engineer, and so I'm still a bit uncomfortable of like where my future holds in geology. So hopefully.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, let me tell you, even though I was a geography major, both geography and geology share a lot of the same things. Geology, the reason I didn't, there was an option to become a geological science / geography major, but it involved too much chemistry and physics, so that's why I skipped out on the geology aspect of it. But that's what drives a lot of people away from geology, which is good because it's a really small program, just like geography. So you're pretty guaranteed to get I don't want to say guaranteed, but the likelihood of you finding a job within that industry, I would say, is probably pretty high. I did take some geology classes when I was at UF. I didn't take that many. It were mostly just the more basic lower level classes. But what I was told and what I learned from geography is that geology, especially UF, is a really hands-on. They have a field school, I know, as a part of their degree program. So you really get to hone on a lot of those skills that you'll apply when you go to apply for work after you graduate. As a geology major, I would suggest, do you know what GIS is? Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I do.
Cool, yeah. So as a geography major, that's one of the most definitive career paths. You can just be a GIS analyst. And some of my job does include using GIS to sort of analyze and present data visually in a spatial aspect that can be used by the project managers to make, you know, better decisions when they're designing a street. But GIS is probably the most awesome software program there is, because it has like so many applications and it can be used literally in so many industries. I mean, at the basic level, obviously, yes, just like analyzing, you know, geology and geographic things on the earth, but also a lot of businesses use GIS. I work with a lot of urban planners, and they all definitely use GIS, like AutoCAD, especially when they're designing. So the definite advice I would give to you is take advantage of any opportunity to like sharpen your technical skills, because that will for sure definitely help you out to get even just an interview, just to see that you have some sort of foundational knowledge in GIS and whatever other technical skills in geology that you'd have to undertake. I don't know. I know that they do like a lot more science stuff, and if I was, like I said, better at chemistry and physics, I would definitely love to nerd out over a bunch of rocks and like different land. And they went down a field school to like Colorado. Like, that's so much fun. Like, and you're just like outside with like a bunch of like-minded people, and like geology and geography are really small programs. So that's what was best for me, because you get to know everyone and it's easy to get recommendations written and opportunities to find out, especially if you want to stay in like Florida area. So yeah, geology is awesome. Did I answer all your questions?
I probably have more. I'll just write them down on the side while you talk.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Samira. I just changed my major. I was chemistry for 3 years, and then I just switched to sociology. But I also kind of like want to minor in a couple of things, kind of like leadership and health science. So I came today because I wanted to know more about kind of like your transition, in a sense of like your junior and senior year, and like how you approached those last years. Because I was also thinking of doing like study abroad, but I'm like, is it worth it? Is it just kind of like fun and shenanigans, or like how like your approach, like you finishing off school and transitioning into like your like career?
Yeah, so let me just preface this by saying that I graduated, I was only at UF for 3 years. So like I did things like sort of not traditionally. I also entered in UF with credits from like when I was in IB and AP in high school. So like I like cut out like a year of that. And like because I was in a geography major, it's like just a liberal arts, and I was in the Bachelor of Arts Science. So there was like a lot of, it was like pretty easy to fulfill the requirements and also study abroad. And actually some of my study abroad requirements fulfilled my minor requirements and requirements for just like my general degree. So even if you don't think that you have time to study abroad, you should still like make time to study abroad, just because, especially if you can go, I didn't get the opportunity to go in the fall and spring, so I had to like work harder to get like a lot of scholarships. And I was very fortunate enough to get scholarships. The Gilman scholarship gave me $5,000 to go during the summer, which paid for almost like 75% of the trip. And then I got another scholarship from the UF International Center for $1,000. So like, it's pretty easy to you have to apply. And if you're thinking about going for the summer, now is like, the deadlines are like right around this time of the year. But yeah, so transitioning in terms of after college, the best part of having FOS is that you will not have any student debt, and that is, I wouldn't have been able to move to New York if I had a bunch of student debt. I mean, I don't want to say I couldn't have, but it definitely alleviates a lot of struggle that you'll have to undergo. And then now it's easier to maybe take on some debt for your graduate school education, because a lot of times people get undergraduate degrees and then they don't, maybe that's not what you're going to do, but your graduate degree will, obviously that's like what, if you want to make your career out of that, so you go back to school for that. And then, I see like just having to take graduate debt isn't as bad as having to have taken undergraduate and graduate debt, because that's close to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And like some of the people I personally know who are like in our same situation, just graduated, or my situation, just graduated, and they pay like, close to like $300, $400, $500, $700 a month in student loan payments. So that's definitely not fun. And if I had to make a student loan payment, I don't think I would be able to afford to eat in New York, because New York is really expensive. Very, 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 very expensive. And so I would definitely recommend trying to study abroad during the fall and spring if you can do so in your major. You said you're sociology, which I think is in liberal arts, correct? Yes?
Yeah,
So, yeah, so like they're pretty cool about, I mean, I imagine just get to know your major advisor, and they're pretty cool about, you know, replacing one requirement with another thing that you did. I mean, that's at least what they did in geography. They were super cool. They were always very supportive. So I imagine sociology definitely would be in tune with that. And also, like I said, I keep saying go during the fall and spring just because that's when you will definitely have FOS. And, you know, a lot of these times, if you go through like a UF program, it almost like costs the same amount of money just to go if you were to go to school in Gainesville or if you were to go to school in China or Spain or Saudi Arabia or wherever you want to go. And the only thing the biggest expense that I had to sort of come up with money for in the beginning when I studied abroad was my plane ticket. And, you know, I planned and I knew a few months ahead of time that I was going to be going to China. So I got a pretty good deal on my plane ticket. So don't just haphazardly decide to study abroad. Definitely like plan it out and see if it'll work into your schedule, but I don't see why it wouldn't. And it was honestly the best experience because when I was in China, I was actually about to start in would have been my junior year, a graduate program in urban planning at UF. But I don't know, just being in China and just seeing the world and talking to a bunch of different people, just said, why rush to graduate school right now? And it just so happened that because I was in China and because at the time I was just like, well, I can do this all now and graduate at the end of my junior year and get out a year early. And then I honestly just got really, really lucky that I got this job here. But it really, anything can happen. That is my mantra in life now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more, Kyle, about how you did get your job, and was it posted somewhere? Did you know somebody who knew somebody? Like, how did that all transpire?
Yeah, so the way to get, so I work for like the city of New York. I work specifically at the Department of Transportation, and it's a humongous bureaucracy. It is probably the most bureaucratic governmental organization that you would ever encounter, and like it comes down on you, but so there's a bunch of different ways to get jobs through the city, and this pretty much applies to a lot of bigger governmental firms. The way that I specifically got my job was that I actually was applying for a bunch of different jobs in the fall of what was going to be my senior year, and I sort of was applying for jobs that I was qualified for and a lot of jobs that I weren't so qualified for. But the fact that I applied for a job that I was grossly underqualified for led me to the current job that I have now, because the interviewer or hiring manager was going through all the resumes that I actually had submitted for this specific position and said, like, she was like, thanks, but no thanks. Like, you don't qualify for this position, but ... There's a new unit that we're developing at the Department of Transportation, and your qualifications seem to be, you know, they literally matched up perfectly with what they were looking for in candidates. And it just so happened that that job posting was posted at that time. And I applied in November of 2014 and an interview. And I actually got to fly up to New York for the interview because I got a really, really good flight for only $125 from Jacksonville to New York. And I was literally here for one night. And yeah, so that's how I got my job, by just like applying through online and then coming up in your interview. One of the things that might have also itty bitty tiny helped me out a little bit was the fact that my uncle also works for the city of New York. He worked in the parks department, but there's not a lot of nepotism that goes on in government. So they definitely check out all that, and that and he was just a gardener. So it wasn't like he was some head honcho at the parks department. And this is also transportation, and they're completely separate entities. But literally the job that I had applied for, the my qualifications were just completely aligned with what they wanted in candidates. Like I spoke Spanish and Chinese, so that was something that was literally written on the job description, that speaks Chinese and Spanish. People who have backgrounds in GIS, or not GIS, wasn't like Adobe, like Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, which I do have a little bit of a background in that. Also just research and just being like, a lot of my job involves like talking to people. I specifically do like all the outreach for me, and a team of people do all the outreach for all the projects that we undertake at DOT. And I would say that I like to talk, so it's like a pretty good position. And I was given the gift of gab, so it's good. And the best part about working at DOT is that you are working on projects that legitimately affect every single type of person every single day of their lives, which is really great because you have tremendous potential to make a humongous impacts on the way that people move throughout space and how goods are efficiently moved throughout the city. But then at the same time, you also are talking to something that affects people positively and very negatively on a daily basis. So people tend to have very strong opinions about how they feel about the changes that we make on the street. And one of the things, unfortunately, I don't want to say, but unfortunately, is really just asking people like, what do you hate about the street? And then I take that data and more or less and report it back to the project managers about what the issues are. Now, going back to how I got the job, because I went on a tangent there, there's another way to get a job with the city is called taking something called a civil service exam. And that is just like a test that you take. I actually just recently took my first civil service exam on January the 9th. And it's not the most, I don't want to say, it was designed many, many years ago by a man called like Robert Moses in the city to rid the city of cronies and nepotism and hiring of your brothers and sisters and cousins and uncles and whatever else. And the tests are, I don't know, I personally don't think you should be measured on how well you do on the tests, but this is one of the ways that they hire people. And it's pretty controversial. Like, for example, the test that I took, they were treating it like it was an SAT or an ACT or the GRE, like this like great level. You couldn't have a phone. They wouldn't even tell you how much time was left in the test. It was pretty crazy. But then there was a bunch of typos in the test. So like, it's like you're wondering, it's like, do these people take their job too seriously? There's like a lot of this like weird government stuff that I could go on a rant about, but I'm not going to do that now. But yeah, so that's another way, is just to take a civil service exam. But when you take the civil service exam and score better than a 70%, you're put on this thing called a list. And everyone who made 70% is on this list, and they're pulled based on their score from 1 to 10,000, because sometimes thousands of people show up to take these tests. And then based on what your score is and your qualifications as well, because you do have to meet certain qualifications for certain tests, you then get to interview for a position, and then you are what is called a permanent civil servant with the city of New York, which gives you many protections in your job. That's probably one of the best aspects of working for like government, city government, especially the city of New York, is that the benefits definitely, I don't make that much money, but the benefits are out of this world. I mean, I have a pension, I have a 401k, I have the best health insurance. I have, you know, I'm in a union. There is like a lot of different benefits that you get to take in, and you should definitely take advantage of them. Even if you wanted to buy a house, they could help you buy a house. So there's a lot of benefits to taking government. You just won't make that much money. So that's how you get a job with the government, more or less. But most government agencies, especially in Florida, and I would say probably just in the South in general, don't employ this civil service exam model. It's pretty much just you like apply for a job. I worked at a couple state and local government agencies when I was at UF, specifically in the city of Newbury, and then also at the St. John's River Water Management District. And it was to my understanding that people were just purely hired based on their qualifications there. They didn't necessarily have to take a test. But even though they didn't have to take a test, I think that they were allotted pretty good, security in their job. And, anywhere you go to the government, you're going to have pretty good benefits. That's what I've been told. I just got really lucky in that the city of Newark really takes care of it. And it's like, at first, unions aren't like so popular down in Florida. So I was like a little apprehensive because I feel like I've been told a lot in my life that unions aren't the greatest thing and that there's government blah, blah, blah. But, there's good and bad to everything. But, having like pretty good job security, like I could stay at my job till I was 65 and retire and live a nice life. Like you can be here until you die. And like, that's what a lot of people do. I'm the youngest person that isn't an intern that works at the Department of Transportation out of 4,500 people. So, and a lot of them have been there for 25, 30, 40 years. So that's good because they're all about to retire. And here I am, fresh meat. So that'll be good as I continue in my career.
So to follow up really quickly on that then, do you have a typical like 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 job and also an office? I mean, clearly you're at Starbucks in the middle of the afternoon on a Thursday.
Yeah.
What's your
my schedule is actually 10 to 6. I am just at Starbucks because my office is literally like, I can see it. It's like right there. But they're really crazy. There's no Wi-Fi in our office. We can't do anything, and there's no service in the building. And they would not be. It's not that they wouldn't be cool with this, but it's just like you can't use taxpayer dollars to do. There's still a lot of corruption in the city that happens still to this day, and like people steal. It's not just like stealing a piece of paper or a stamp. I mean, it's like people are stealing like hundreds of millions of dollars. So you're constantly being watched, and you constantly have to make sure to mind your P's and Q's. Yeah, I am essentially on my lunch break right now. I work 10 to 6 at an office in Lower Manhattan. Usually that's where our office is. It's right by Wall Street, right by where the Staten Island Ferry leaves from, if you guys are familiar with the geography of New York. It's literally almost at the tip of Manhattan where Battery Park is. And when I'm not in the office, I'll be out in the field, and we literally work in every single borough in New York City, which is really exciting because sitting in an office sometimes can get really boring and dull, even though we have I'm really lucky because we have an amazing office that it's all like open floor plan and beautiful panoramic views of the East River and the Brooklyn Bridge, and there's this cool park next door called the Elevated Acre. So like it's awesome that we have this really nice office, and I have a standing desk, which is cool. So adding a couple years to my life, and but I'm always out in the field, just walking around. I mean, just living in New York, you're always walking, just because I don't own a car, and in our job, we literally will go out and, we'll attack an entire corridor. Last week, or at the beginning of this week, we were in an area of Brooklyn called Bushwick, and they're actually thinking about expanding the bicycle network there in Bushwick, adding bicycle lanes all along streets called Knickerbocker and Irving. And we were going out there talking to all the businesses about these changes, and then also collecting some data about when they're getting deliveries, how many employees work there, just like specific data. So maybe that we can change the curbside regulations to meet their needs for deliveries, for parking, maybe add some bike parking in. Yeah. So my job is always 10 to 6. And the best part about a government job is that when 6 o'clock rolls around, it's 6 o'clock and you don't have to do anything after that. But there's a lot of opportunities to also get comp time and paid time off. It's crazy. It's like it's the norm for someone to go on a month-long vacation. Like it's really like because I actually got hired in February but didn't start until September because of long bureaucracy, paperwork approval, BS for lack of better terms. In the almost 6 months that I've been working, I've already accumulated like 15 days of vacation time. So, and some people don't ever use it. So when they're there for 30 years and then they retire, and then they get to stay on their books for like a year or two because they've accumulated so much vacation time. And then they get to add an extra year of service. So their pension becomes bigger, their 401k becomes bigger, everything becomes bigger. So like, it's really, there's a lot of benefits to working for the government. So let's just put it that way.
Were you always fond of New York, or is it just something that happened and you kind of adjusted to it?
Well, actually, my family originally was all from New York. They just moved to Florida before I was born. Both of my parents grew up on Long Island. My grandparents grew up in New York City. I still have a lot of family that lives in like the general area, right in Hoboken, which is on the other side of the river of Manhattan. My cousins live. My dad has a bunch of friends that still live on Long Island. A lot of my family doesn't mostly live here, or they're older and have died. But New York was something that just happened. I wanted to move to New York. I can't lie. I wanted to be here, but I did apply for jobs. I interviewed for some jobs in Florida, and I think it was pretty much mostly Florida and then some random places too. But yeah, I honestly it was funny because when I went to my interview, they were like, wait, you're from Florida? Like what? And it was like February, so it was like snowing and the river was frozen. They're like, why are you leaving Florida for like this crazy blizzard? I don't know if you guys know, but like about 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was like a huge blizzard that came into New York, and like 3 feet of snow was dropped down on the city. So that was fun because I was like, I never seen all this, and I was like, it was like a crazy amount of snow, but I literally had the time of my life because I live really close to Central. I live in Manhattan, so I live pretty close to Central Park, and I bought a little. I kept calling it a sleigh, but I guess it's called a sled here. But like a little plastic thing. It was so much fun. Snow was pretty cool, but it's supposed to be like 1 degree this weekend. So but I heard it snowed in Gainesville just recently. So yeah. Yeah,
this morning.
Yeah, there's no snow left on the ground now, but it was pretty crazy when it was snowing all like that. And like snow's really cool for like the first 2 days, but then after that it all becomes black and mushy and full of gasoline and oil and truck and trash, and it's not fun after 2 or 3 days.
So how have you developed like friendships or networks? Have you do you know anybody else from your UF days or Florida days that are there in New York City, or have you just kind of branched out?
I know actually one person that I've kept in touch with that I went to high school that goes to Columbia, which is in Morningside Heights, which is Upper Manhattan, around 116th Street. I live at 130th, so actually we live pretty close together. I'm pretty cool. I'm close with my coworkers. It's pretty easy to meet people here. I mean, there's like 1 million people stuck on an island, so what could go wrong? And yeah, I mean, it's really, I mean, I haven't in the first couple of months. Remember, it was sort of hard because I was also waiting to start this job, and I was like stressing out about it because it was like oh, just one more month, you have to wait 1 more month, and like there was all this drama that was happening with that. And so I had to like find another job. I actually ended up working, I think, to hold me over in the time because I moved up here in June right after graduation, and I actually ended up working at this park called the High Line. Have you guys ever heard of that? It's a new. It was once an elevated train track that they've turned into a park. Awesome, really cool place, and it was pretty cool that I got to work there. And then after that, I started. So that like the first couple of months that I was here was sort of stressful, and I was like, but now everything has just come full circle, and I couldn't be happier.
Is that a question?
I just want to add that my computer, I'm not near a charger, and my computer only has 10% left, and I probably can stay for like another 8 minutes.
So you said you were also working.
I'm sorry, say that again?
You said you were also working while you were in school. Mostly related to. So having that ideal, do you think like if we sort of did the same thing, do you think like finding a job / getting kind of like connections can help too?
Yeah, I mean, definitely because if you don't want to leave Florida or like leave the general southeastern region of the United States, obviously definitely build your network down there. Unfortunately, any network that I did build in Florida obviously it's not like meaningless here. But the best part about the network that I did build and the people that I did meet is that they really wrote me really awesome recommendation letters. And some people said it was a little bold, but when I came up here, I brought like a portfolio with like legitimate like recommendation letters from these people, from like people that I worked with. And I've been told that like that's like one of the definitive reasons why I got the job, because they did essentially write me like really nice recommendations and really touched on a lot of the things that they were looking for in people for this specific job that I have. So definitely, I mean, it can't hurt to build your network regardless, because you have to, and you need to get recommendations and meet people, and you never know. I mean, there's interns who work for the DOT now that will eventually become jobs, who will eventually get hired. The thing about internships with city and local government agencies and state agencies in Florida is that they don't, unfortunately, pay you, which sort of sucks and is sort of illegal, but that's another story. But that's sort of the drawback. But you know, all of us had FOS, so you know there is like that rock that you have, that you know your bills are paid, and like if you do have to, you know, work for a couple hours a week for free, it's not like ideal, but you know that's the only way to get the experience. And in my experience, when you're a paid intern, I don't know, they pay attention to you, but they don't pay attention too much to you. So like I was always like a go-getter and like always developed projects for myself, and like I think that's one of the reasons they wrote me like a great recommendation. So I think that's like sort of a downside of unpaid internships, is that they're like, I don't want to say they don't care, but they're not like too much invested into it. And I only ever really worked at government agencies and that. And then I also was a part of, if you guys like bicycles, you should, because bikes are great and efficient and sustainable. But the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Board in Alachua County in the Gainesville metropolitan area is something that I was also a part of. And that's like a great way to really get involved in, you know, local municipal issues, if that is your thing. And that helped me out getting my job now too, because a lot of the things that I do now are related to going to these sort of meetings, community board meetings, talking with the public about specific projects like that and everything else. So I think I only have enough for one more question, because my computer is at 5% and I don't have my charger, so I'm really sorry about that.
What's next for you, Kyle? What's your long-term goals?
I'm actually hopefully going to be starting a master's program in urban planning in the fall at a school called Hunter College, which is on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. It is sort of like a UF because it's a public school and it's also like relatively affordable. So it's not like the best planning program in the world, but I've sort of realized that wherever you go, 2 + 2 is always going to equal 4. And in graduate school, I mean, as long as you go to an accredited, reputable school that's like a decent thing, like that's what you should do. And I'm mostly driven there just because of the economics of it all. There's opportunities to help get my education somewhat a little bit paid through by my employer, but that's sort of a stretch. But that's what I'm planning on doing, just because I want to get involved in the more technical aspects of the planning. I want to actually be the person who like designs the streets and not gets yelled at by the people how much I hate the streets. But yeah, so like that's my next step, and that will probably take 2 or 3 years. But I'm not really like, I'm not gonna like I'm gonna stay working when I'm in school. I'm not gonna quit. I'll probably stay full-time working and then part-time school, because I'm not really in a rush to finish my graduate program. It'll just happen as it goes. And like, I mean, I'd rather do well and do it slow than be like, I have to finish it right now. So, and like a lot of people that I worked with went to Hunter and they all said it's very doable. It's pretty easy to do, like pay as you go. So that's like what I'm sort of planning on doing if I can't secure any funding, because graduate school, especially for like master's program, is pretty difficult to get funding for like a lot of most programs, I would say. So that's what's happening next.
You like New York City enough though that your plans to stay there and stay in the job?
Yeah, I'm pretty much laying my roots here to be here for like a while. The best part about, you know, working for the city's DOT is that when we do something, the whole world watches, and like we set the precedent for how everything is changed. And it's pretty cool to be a part of that. And like I said, you know, we affect 8 million people a day, and it's pretty cool to be a part of something like bigger than you. Yeah, cool. Do you guys have any other questions?
Well, thank you, Kyle. We appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm glad people came and wanted to hear what I had to say.
Yeah,
And
you're doing good stuff. So keep us looped in with what you're doing, and if you end up in grad school and all that good stuff.
yeah, definitely. I'll keep myself updated on that nifty alumni map.
Right.
Kudos to that spatial analysis.
Yeah, well, it needs some work. So if you develop some good programming skills and want to contribute them for free our way, just
Yeah. I forget your name, but geology major, to learn how to program, because it will 100%. That's one thing I charge you to do. Like, if you take anything else from today, go learn how to program.
All right.
And everyone else too. Everyone else, because it will only serve you. Because then you can just do whatever you want. You don't have to rely on other people. That's what my goal is like to like get all the skills so like you can do it yourself. Because I'm finding that like when you ask other people to do things, sometimes they don't do it to like the caliber that you want it. So that's why it's important to like sort of put your tentacles like an octopus in every sort of different niche.
And I think it's cool too, Kyle, that I remember you when you were debating between a linguistics major and Chinese and then going abroad, and you're kind of all over the place. So I think part of the other takeaway message, even though you didn't say this clearly, is that you didn't have it figured out either. And the fact that you ended up in this job, which like you said, where you were kind of just sort of happy, gives people hope. I think that even if you don't know exactly what you want to do, like you just have to stay persistent, build the right connections, talk to people like you did, and something will, hopefully work out.
Honestly, like if you had told me like a year and a half ago now that I would be sitting here in Starbucks on Wall Street in New York City, I probably wouldn't have believed you. So like I said, the takeaway from this is just like Ellie Goulding said, anything could happen. There we go. Cool. All right. Well, what'd you say?
Stay in touch. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely, Leslie. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and best of luck in all of your future endeavors.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, bye.
It's really like fantasy.
Yeah, love it. Stephanie can share his contact.